Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Looking for Love and All the Wrong Dust Jackets, a show where three cool friends talk to you about anything that we want in romance, whether that's books, movies, TV shows, whatever we like. My name's Liz.
I'm Danny.
I'm Wiggles.
And welcome to the show. Today we're going to talk to you about a classic, an old favorite, something everybody loves, the movie The Princess Bride. But before we get to the movie, we got to do the warning so that everybody knows and nobody gets upset. We are crass ladies. We're going to swear. We're going to talk about the sexy time. Probably not much in this movie, but in other episodes. And if you don't like that, I get it, but maybe you're not going to like us.
Okay, goodbye. Miss you so much.
But what have you guys been up to? Talk to me about the last week. What have you been reading, watching, listening to, etc.?
So I've been listening to the audiobook for The Fourth Wing. I've just started it, but I've been listening to that. And then I stereotypically at this point went down a Grey's binge. And then I played Hogwarts Legacy a lot. And Raft. I kind of had a video game centric weekend when I was not bowling with you bitches.
Fair enough. I read How to Marry a Millionaire Vampire by Carolyn Sparks. I think it's probably closer to Carolyn, but it's Kerrelyn. So anyway, Miss Sparks kind of did me a little dirty because the first half of this book is great. It's funny, it's like bizarre and a little bit hot even when in the weirder moments, and you're like, oh, this is really like, this is what I needed. I just needed a fun romp kind of thing. And then it just gets weird and not great and sexist and Jesus-y.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
How does a book about marrying a millionaire vampire get Jesus-y?
Well, so every vampire's got, not every, but just about every vampire story has like this historic thing where they're like, I'm 1,000 years old, right? Well, this one's 500 years old and he was a monk before he was killed. And so he believes God abandoned him, and she has to like convince him that like, no, God hasn't abandoned you. I was so mad because it was so good, and then I was like, this is getting weird.
Yeah, and I would not enjoy a Jesus-y vampire book.
No.
Frick.
No. Well, and okay, so like it had a very convoluted plot from the very beginning, like without spoiling pretty much anything. She is in the witness protection program because she witnessed a mob hit, right?
Like you do.
And so then that sort of like intermingles with the vampire story, and you're like, oh, like this is a lot, but like this is fun, right? Because they're like running around, crazy antics. She's like, you're gonna murder me, and he's like, I'm not gonna murder you. And then she's like, oh, I'm safe with you. And then she's like, whoa, bitch, you are a vampire. But then also on top of it, she's a dentist. And so their meeting happens because he loses a tooth doing some stupid shenanigans, and he needs somebody to reinsert it before midnight, or not before midnight, before dawn, because he'll heal, and if he heals up, he won't be able to get the tooth back in. So it's like, okay, this is a bit of a mess, but it's a fun mess, and then it just goes.
If he heals, couldn't she just cut him back open and put the tooth in?
No, that's not how it works.
Oh,
Also, couldn't he just shove it
like
up there?
For a human being also, like if you were to like lose your tooth and it would heal over,
yeah,
you could have an implant,
yeah,
but I don't know if that would work with a retractable tooth, which is what vampires have.
I don't know.
Some do, some don't.
I'm not a dentist.
Yeah.
Listen.
I'm also not an expert on vampire anatomy, despite the amount of books and TV shows that I've consumed.
Anyway, I'm not going to talk about this book more because it doesn't deserve it. I gave it a 3 for the first half.
For the first half?
Yeah.
Okay. I read Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. I listened to it actually on Yield Audiobooks, which was unfortunate because the narrator was definitely not one of my favorites.
There's no audiobook daddy?
No, she had like a way of, it just was a very unnatural speech pattern that felt very like, you know, when you go and you listen to somebody who's like, I don't know, a pastor or something, the way they give sermons, it sounds almost unnatural the way they talk sometimes.
Mhm.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Also, I didn't like the book. So there's that. It's not that I didn't like it. I did technically give it a 3, but it's for an adult book written at a much lower reading level. And like, it's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to have that like contemporary voice, but in a medieval setting. Or maybe that wasn't intentional, but it in the way that like some comedies, adult cartoons or like comedy movies will be contemporary but set in medieval times, and that's part of the humor. I had high hopes for it. It looked really fun, and it kind of crashed and burned on me.
Yeah,
That
wah, wah.
sucks.
Yeah.
You know, I've been seeing some of that around TikTok that's kind of gotten mixed reviews.
This book,
Mhm.
yeah. I really struggled with the characters because they, on paper, had interesting backstories, but they didn't come across as like, they kind of just came across flat.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
hate that.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're like, in theory, this should be wonderful.
Yeah, you had all of the right elements. They just didn't come together right, which was a bummer. But then I also read Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin, and I really liked that book. I gave it a 4.5. The reason I didn't give it a 5 is just because there are some elements that were, I was like, man, maybe that could have been fleshed out a little bit more, but the book is also over 500 pages, so I get it. But it's about it's set in this like Gothic French kind of vibe, but it's not in any place we would recognize as a fantasy. And it's about a witch who ran away from her coven and then by random circumstance ends up being married to a witch hunter, and he doesn't know she's a witch. So it's very interesting. It's got that whole forced marriage, forced proximity vibe.
I do weirdly like that.
I do too.
Like, I don't, as an independent single woman, I don't want to like the like forced marriage trope or whatever, or forced proximity trope, but I really fucking do for whatever reason. I'm like, God damn it, Danny.
I like it too.
Yeah.
But that's because you know you're going to get that happy ending. Like I wouldn't
True.
like it in real life because the odds are it won't be a happy ending.
Oh yeah, no, the odds are I'm gonna punch somebody in the
Yeah.
throat, but
Like an arranged marriage in reality is horrific. It's like, whoa, no.
To us, there are some people who and
Sure,
some
sure,
cultures
sure,
that
sure,
works
sure,
just
sure.
fine for.
I'm talking about my perspective.
Yes.
You do whatever you want to do. But when it comes to like thinking about it in practice, I've never met this person before in my life, and now I'm stuck with them in my house, in my space. We're supposed to do the do. No, I would murder that person.
Yeah.
my aspect of it is I don't like people enough that like for me to be able to like, yes, I will marry you even though I don't know you. That's horrible. I already don't like people to an extent. I love you guys. I love our people. That's about it. I don't really like people all that much.
I will say one thing about this book, though. Sorry, random, but just because you were talking about the Jesus-y, the witch hunters do follow the it's not Christian in the book, but it is God in the way that we would think of like a Christian God,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole like thou shalt not suffer a witch and crap like that. But it is really interesting. And down with pretty much every institution in this book, they just kind of are like, the witch covens are bad and culty. The church is bad and culty. The kingdom is bad and self-serving. Take it all down. So if you're anti-establishment, it's great.
Good to know.
Yeah.
I still can't get over a Bible thumping vampire.
Yo.
That would take me out immediately.
He gifts her, this is a spoiler if you do want to read it. He gifts her a silver cross to protect herself from other vampires and himself. And
Is he Angel from Buffy?
just wait. Somehow her love for him allows him to touch it at the end.
No.
Oh, ew. No.
Immediately no. Okay, but we're not going to keep talking about that because we're talking about The Princess Bride today, which I do love. So I believe Danny has some fun facts for us.
I do have a couple of fun facts. One is, Andre the Giant's in it. I love him. He's amazing. But they had to be incredibly fragile with him at this point in his life. He was very delicate. Like the scene where you see him holding Buttercup, he's not. They were holding her up. He had his arms around her, but he was not holding her up. He was not bearing her weight. And then the one that always gets me, and like knowing this when you watch the scene makes so much sense, is when the six-fingered man hits Wesley in the head with the base of the sword and he
Yes.
goes unconscious. He actually knocked Carrie Olsen unconscious. Knocked him the fuck out. And the noise gets me every fucking time.
Well, isn't it because Carrie said, "Hey, just hit me," and he's like, "All right, I'll hit you for real," and then he really hit him real good.
Oh God, and it's the noise for me. Like knowing that was real, I'm like, oh God, the instant headache that I feel like I would get from that moment. Ugh.
Funny thing about it is that every time I watched that before knowing that fact, I was just like, he falls so unnaturally. It turns out that no, I was wrong. That's how he naturally falls.
Well, and that's how we don't realize what people actually naturally look like when they do fall like that.
Right, because we're only exposed to what we normally see faked in the media.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, and then I have one more fun fact, and it's about Mandy Patinkin, who
Right.
plays Inigo. And that whole thing where he's constantly saying, hello, my name is Inigo Matei. You killed my father. Prepare to die. He was talking. He was picturing his father he just lost his father to cancer, and he was speaking to cancer about losing his father, and that's why it's so emotional.
There was a big thing on TikTok about that, I want to say about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, where this girl who had lost her father had talked about how that was one of her favorite movies or whatever, just thinking like she's just talking about one of her favorite movies, and that moment meaning a lot more to her now that her dad has passed. And then he responded to it, and it was like hella emotional.
Oh,
I
yeah,
was like,
no,
I just came on here for the laughs, and you are attacking me right now.
It was very much a moment for me of, I'm not crying, you're crying.
Right?
Who's cutting up all those damn onions?
Yeah, fucking onions.
How'd you get in my house with those onions? Oh my God.
How many people knowing that I'm sitting there bawling at TikTok? Although the Hell's Bells series has made me cry like that a couple times.
Didn't Mandy Patinkin also say that this was his favorite role of all time, Inigo?
I believe so, yeah.
I think so.
I could see it.
It'd be a lot of fun.
Well, so here's a couple fun facts that I know. Both the actors in the main sword fight learned actual sword fighting for it, and had a very particular like routine and everything to do. So they had to go through like sword fighting training, which I thought was really cute.
Are you talking about Wesley and Inigo and their sword fight? Mm-hmm.
Apparently, they wanted like to be able to do full body shots, and so they didn't want to have stunt people.
Sure.
So yeah. That's how that happened. Also, thing about Andre the Giant has said some things along the lines of like part of the reason he liked working on the movie so much was because people just treated him like a normal person, which is very sad.
It is really sad.
But if you think about Andre's life in like professional wrestling, that was his whole thing. Is you are big. That's like the thing that matters about you.
Right.
I saw a thing on TikTok not too long ago, and it was talking about the Princess Ride, but pointing out the different class and how everyone just assumes that Fezzik is a barbarian. He's a big, strong guy. But if you actually stop to think about it, he will not fight if he can. He likes word games, and he likes to talk to everybody. He can get everybody to move in with just the sound of his voice. He's a fucking bard. And I was like, that actually makes so much sense. It's like stupid how much sense that made to me, and it cracked me up. I'm like, oh my God, Fezzik's a bard, and it just makes it better. Anybody want a peanut?
Story feels a little bit like somebody's like D&D campaign. You can kind of like point out like, oh, this is the like, obviously Vincini would be a wizard, right?
Yeah.
Not a good one.
No,
Not a good one. No,
Not
he's
a good
one that
one.
is constantly rolling natural ones.
Right. Wesley, you could put him in a few different things, but I would assume fighter
Or rogue.
or rogue. Well, I
Rogue is
figured
where
you
I
would
was
give that to Inigo, but
Either, yeah.
yeah. Anyway, point being, like, you could the also just the way the lines are delivered and everything. It feels very in that vein.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the book that it's based off of, which
Oh,
is
yeah. It's
called
based
The
off
Princess
a
Bride.
book.
Yes,
Which
it is.
I love and have read.
Mm-hmm.
I have not.
You should. It's different enough that it's worth the read.
Oh, okay.
And to the extent that like the whole thing where the grandpa's reading to his grandson,
Yeah.
it's got meta moments like that in
Yeah.
it, but it's not that. It does not have the grandpa and the son.
Yeah, it doesn't have the grandpa or the son, but there's definitely moments where he puts meta moments in it, and you're like,
Yes.
what is happening right now?
Right. So the premise of the book is that the author William Goldman has annotated and edited this book, The Princess Bride, and I think the original title was even like, but just the good parts or something like that. Like, and so you've got like this whole thing where he'll like occasionally chime in and he'll be like, yeah, I wrote this for I wanted to edit this because I used to read this to my daughters when they were sick, and things like that, which is interesting because the original book was written for his daughters as well, like, right? But also there's these just really funny moments that are like, so when Wesley and Buttercup finally get back together, we're denied this like big romantic moment, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, I actually have access to that chapter. And so if you send money to this account, this is hilarious. I remember reading it and being like, no one else knows what's going on. But also, just as much as this movie's got snark, the line delivery in the book is even more vicious. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to the part where Wesley and Buttercup do get back together and reunite.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, she says, well, and you can die too for all I care, and pushes him down the hill, right?
Yeah.
In the movie, we see Wesley falling, and he's saying, as you wish, all that, right? In the book, Buttercup hears that, even though that's not what he's saying the whole time. He's like, don't come down here. She jumps off anyway. And he's like, why would you do that? I was like, this is, it's so hard to watch the movie now and not tell everybody about this. So anyway, I would recommend checking that out.
The book is very good. I do say, I distinctly remember I was reading the book while I was at work when I worked at the TV station.
Mm.
And I had to like put it down because, hey, you know what? There's a TV show going on that you're part of. I was running the teleprompter.
How rude of them.
Ugh, God damn, I have to read the fucking script and put it where like people can see it. Ugh, do your own teleprompter. Anyway, but I finished it like right at the end, towards the end of the show when I wasn't really needed anymore. They were doing their little quippy shit and I like instantly pick up the book again and like finished it and was like, what the fuck? Because that has a strange ending.
It does, but we won't spoil it.
No. Let's talk about the movie, shall we?
Yeah, let's.
We're pretty late, but do we need to do a summary of the movie?
I mean, here's the thing. I think this might be the one where we don't.
I agree.
It would be very strange if you hadn't seen this yet. Though, to be fair, I didn't watch this until I was in college.
Nah, you had to have watched
Uh-huh.
it in high school with us.
We didn't watch this in high school.
Yes, we did.
We did?
Yes. This was the alternate to UHF.
What was it?
How did you get through all your
I
high
don't
school
remember
experience
this.
never seeing it?
See, and I started seeing this when I was in elementary school because my bestie, her dad was like, shut up, both of you. We're watching The Princess Bride.
Hmm.
And we were like, cool, let's do this.
I mean, it's possible that I watched it in high school, but when you get to your 30s, the difference between 17 and 19 mentally isn't much.
That's
No.
That's
So I'm
right.
like, I don't know.
Well, okay. I'll give the briefest of rundowns. If you haven't seen this movie, obviously spoilers are in effect. I've already spoiled some stuff. But the basic premise is that this grandfather comes to babysit his grandson while he's homesick and chooses to read to him one of his favorite books from when he was a kid, The Princess Bride. And he proceeds to start telling him this story about giants and monsters and bad guys and heroes. And we get to have these beautiful moments where we actually get to hear him reading over the top of it, but then it blends into the scene. And you've got political intrigue, you've true love. Yeah, I don't.
True love.
I think that's all I'm going to give you. Either go check it out or have it spoiled for you. I don't know what else to tell you. It's like an hour and a half of your time. You'll be fine.
There are very delightful moments in the movie where since we were talking about the narrator, where the narrator is doing, talking and stuff, and then you'll hear his grandson chime in. One of my favorite ones is, see, I told you Wesley wasn't something.
I told you Wesley wasn't dead.
Yes.
Yes, you're very smart. Shut up.
Or, is this a kissing book?
Right. I also love the grandpa's response of, someday you might not mind so much. And to me, that's the meme, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you told little kid me the same thing, you would have been right. Yeah.
It's one of my favorites. It's probably number 3.
Well, I suppose that's something that we haven't talked about a little bit, is that this is a grade A cult classic.
Oh, yeah.
Its original release did not do well, and now it's become such a like cultural icon that I think it was like around 5 years ago that they did this like whole like 25th anniversary thing.
Yeah.
Let me just look up when it came out.
1987.
I was going to say, it came out the
1987,
year I was born.
So that would make now 25 years. So 20 years
No.
ago, or they got together for the 20th anniversary.
No, it would make it 35 right now.
I don't know math.
Make
It's
it
just however old
36
she
right now.
is.
It would make it 36
I
right
don't know math. Oh my god. Anyway.
now. And you bitches were not alive when it came out. Actually, I don't think I was alive when it came out. I think it came out a couple of months before I was born. But
Yeah. I guarantee you, even if you've never watched this movie before, you have heard it quoted to you at some point.
Oh, there's so
Absolutely.
many lines from this movie that are just everywhere.
Everything. I mean, there's, of course, As You Wish. There is, My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
anybody want a peanut?
No more rhyming. I mean it.
Anybody want a peanut? I love that so much. It makes me
Inconceivable.
inconceivable.
Right?
I'm not a witch. I'm your wife.
There's nothing like a mutton, lettuce, and tomato when the mutton is nice and lean. So the tomatoes, they're so perky. Right? Like I could quote the whole
Mostly.
podcast
He's
could just be me
mostly
quoting the
dead.
movie. I'm on the Brute Squad. You are the Brute Squad. Oh man.
Yeah.
Well,
There's a
apparently, here's another little gem of a fun fact for you. That whole scene with Billy Crystal, that was where Manny Patinkin retained his only injury because he apparently bruised his ribs trying not to laugh in the scene.
Really?
Yes.
How do you bruise your ribs?
I
trying
don't
not to
know.
Holding it in.
Oh,
Just
no.
holding it, just the clenched muscle. Just
I suppose it's like holding in a sneeze or something, which can seriously hurt your ribs.
Oh, Mandy. Unlike poor Carrie, who hurt himself, I think, frequently on this set.
I don't remember exactly how the story went, but there was something about like him breaking his toe or something like that and having to go to the doctor, and he's in full costume, right? And then like the injury he sustains where he gets like conked on the head, he has to go back to that same doctor that same day, still wearing the fucking Zorro costume. Can you imagine having to explain yourself? Like, listen, I swear,
I think
Not
I'm
doing it on
being
purpose.
paid to do this. And the doctor's like, that's not better.
I'm pretty sure he burned himself as well when the flame spurt went off and her dress light up.
I think
I think he
so.
burned himself too.
Yeah.
That's what you get for putting real flames next to people.
I don't think her dress was actually supposed to start on fire.
Probably not.
Probably not. One of my favorite parts of the whole movie is in the what is it? Why can't
The
I?
The fire swamp?
Fire swamp, yes. Why does my brain do those things? I don't know. But the ROUS's had that line where she's like, we'll never survive, and he's like, no, nonsense. And he like goes on the spiel like, we've already figured out how to deal with all this. And she's like, what about the ROUS's? And he's like, I don't think they exist. Immediately attacked. Rodents of unusual size, I don't think they
I
exist.
don't think they exist. There's so many good one-liners in it. What made me think of this is, we'll never survive. Nonsense. You only say we'll never survive because no one ever has.
Right?
Yeah.
And then my favorite one in the entire fucking movie is you mock my pain. Life is pain, Highness. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something.
That stuck with me.
It
going
has.
into adulthood, I gotta say.
I was like, oh God, that hit kind of deep.
Well, as much as this movie is funny and lighthearted and kind of silly, there are some not necessarily serious moments, but moments if you just kind of like take a beat, you can really get into them in more of a serious way. And I like Inigo himself as a character is a very sad character,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
But he's also the most relatable. He's a guy who's just, out here doing some shit to pay the bills, as he says, because there's no money in the vengeance game. And I'm like, I feel that. I mean, I'm not here for vengeance, but I feel the idea of like, I'm just working with a stupid guy to pay the bills while I also try to do this thing on the side that I really want to do.
At the end of the day, bills got to be paid. I got to eat.
Every millennial has had a Vicini for a boss. Every
Yes.
single one.
Oh my God.
I'm waiting.
Oh my God. He's so ridiculous. And like all the timing in this movie, honestly, for most everyone is super perfect when they're delivering the lines. It's my favorite thing for him is when he's laughing because, you never go up against a Sicilian. When death is on the line, ah ha ha, ah ha ha, ah ha. And then he falls over dead, and it kills me every single fucking time.
I also love that Fezzik and Inigo are very clearly smarter than Vicini.
Oh, yeah.
And
100%.
And they're just like, well, I don't know. That's what the boss said.
Well, another classic quote is, "You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means."
And just all the like little moments like, oh, if we only had a Holocaust cloak. Fezzik pulls one out of his shirt like this. Where did you get that?
Okay, I've always wondered, but I've never actually just turned on the subtitles. Does he say Holocaust cloak?
Yes, because a Holocaust, the actual definition of the word Holocaust is an immense conflagration, a big fire.
Oh,
Yeah.
So he means a big cloak that you can set on fire?
Yeah. He basically is asking for a fireproof cloak. Thank you, MASH, for that lovely vocabulary lesson.
There you go.
Eh,
The more you know.
learning.
I also love that he's like, what I wouldn't do for a wheelbarrow. And they're like, didn't we have one back with that albino over there? And he's like, why didn't you list that among our assets from the beginning? Just like so annoyed. Like, this is obvious, guys.
Right, yeah.
And he can't do anything because he can't
Right.
move at all at that point.
There's so many quotable things about this movie.
Them walking down the hallway together when he like is holding on to him. Like how much times did they have to start giggling trying to do that where he's just like slightly walking along but leaning almost all his weight on Mandy Patinkin as they're walking down the hallway.
This is sort of before the like onslaught of showing people your bloopers. There must be thousands
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
of hilarious bloopers from this movie.
And Humperdinck.
Humperdinck.
Humperdinck is ridiculous in every sense of the word. Like every time he talks, I'm like, I can't take you seriously.
I love him because for me, I think he was the blueprint for Gaston and villains like him, where they're just like so thick. They're obviously evil and are capable of doing terrible things, right? Like
Yeah.
he very much is planning to not just murder his bride, but start a whole war. But also at the same time, it's freaking hilarious. Like one of my favorite lines, and this is not one that most people are like, when I tell them that, they're like, really? But there's a part where right before they like, when they tumble down the hill, right? And he's like, they disappear and Humperdinck's like, what the hell? He goes, they're panicking into era. I don't know why that makes me laugh every time. He's panicking into era. It's still a delivery, I guess.
The delivery makes me laugh every single time too.
Yes.
That's also just a really great scene when they're tumbling down the hill because all I can think is, all right, Wesley got rid of everybody. He took out the Spaniard. He took out the giant. He took out the Sicilian dumbass. And yet he just gets pushed down a hill by Buttercup.
Yep.
Also, the fact that they did not try to pretty up the falling.
No.
Because, like, they could have prettied up her fall where she just kind of like spun sideways, which if any of us had like jumped, the smart thing to do would have been to lay down and just roll down the hill.
Log roll it.
Yeah, log roll down the hill. But that is not what happened. And
No.
they ass over tea kettled down that entire fucking hill.
And the noises that they make, they're like, ooh, ooh.
Ow! Yeah, like, oh god, it kills me every time. I'm like, why didn't you do this? Like, log roll it. Like, I could have done that. If you're gonna try to get down the hill and get down quickly, like, is it gonna still hurt if you log roll your ass down that hill? Probably, but like, not quite the same.
Well, also Buttercup did not have to dive down the hill. She could have just ran down the damn thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, at no point was the way she went down the hill required.
No.
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 But then how would you have the line, "You're alive. If you want me to, I could fly."
I know. It's actually one of my favorite, like, lovey-dovey moments of all time.
Well, since we're talking about it, let's talk about the romance. What do you guys think of our Buttercup and Wesley?
I mean, they were my standard for a while, if we're
I
being
do love
completely
them.
honest. That's the dream, isn't it? To just be able to boss somebody around and them still be in love with you? Or is that just me?
Oh, man.
Unlike a lot of even medieval, like, romance movies and stuff like that, they go through the trials together. They do go
Mhm.
through the fire swamp together. Like, is he doing the vast majority? Yes. However, she is also learning along the way how to deal with the situations and everything. I did really love their depiction of her when she is out, like when they announce that she's marrying the prince and he goes out and she walks out into the courtyard or whatever, and you can just see she is dead inside.
Mhm.
She wants nothing to do with this, but Wesley's dead, so what the fuck else am I going to do? Because in the time period, and I'm doing that in quotation marks because they really don't tell you what time period it is,
Mhm.
but it's clearly set in like medieval times in like a fantasy thing. Women didn't have a lot of choices as far as, you know, marriage was concerned or whether or not to get married and everything. And obviously her family, this would elevate her family quite a bit.
Well, and if I remember right in the book, and I read this in high school, so I'm also like only really remembering the highlights.
Yeah, same. I was in my early 20s and I don't remember all of it, obviously.
Yeah, but if I remember right in the books, she is also under pressure. Like, she hides out and like tries to hide from the prince. I don't remember if it's like her house specifically or just her whole village is threatened. Like, if she doesn't
Yeah, she is
do
under
this,
immense
she's
pressure from
obligated to do it. And she tells him outright, "I do not love you. I never will love you. This is never going to be a thing." And he's like, "I'm fine with that." And
Yeah.
so she like goes into the marriage fully being like, "Bro, this isn't going to ever be a thing." And he's like, "That's cool. Marry me anyway." So you don't get to know that in the movie, but I feel like that context is sort of implied that like she had to have told him like, this isn't going to be it.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if she did or didn't. I don't think he would have cared either way.
No.
You know,
absolutely not.
I do wish it was in there though that she is she's obviously coerced into this, but like that there is a stake where she couldn't run away, because there is a lot of moments where I'm like, girl, just run away. Go back home to the farm. Go somewhere else.
Well, and the other thing I'm remembering now, like it's just all kind of coming back to me in little waves here, but also Humperdinck, he specifically is choosing to marry someone of the Commonwealth. Like he could easily marry royalty, but he's choosing to marry someone from the Commonwealth to like be like, look at me, I like accept all people, because I think he is actively trying to take the crown from his father who hasn't died.
His parents are I think both his parents are still alive in the book.
Yeah.
They are in the movie.
They are in the movie. But his father's like actively dying, and in the movie it's more that he's chosen that somebody that absolutely everybody in the kingdom just fucking loves.
Right.
Because Buttercup's super sweet, although that she's really not portrayed that way in the beginning. She's just being a bossy boots to Wesley, which I'd bossy his boots.
I never got, circling back to the love, which we were talking about, I never really got the warm and fuzzies off of that. And I know I'm probably the odd one out. I love this movie for like the comedy and the silliness of it. The romance to me is kind of like, it's there.
I like it because it's not pretty. A lot of love stories, especially when they're like a knight in shining armor and a princess and that kind of stuff, which technically neither of them really are, but they are, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're that trope anyway.
for sure.
A lot of the time, it's all trussed up in everything between us is always perfect. and it's just this obstacle in our way. But if it weren't for this obstacle, we would have the perfect happy life. And it's like, no, we fight.
Yeah.
That bitch bossed me around for 2 years straight. Like, come on.
I do like that they fight too and everything.
Yes.
But I also love his explanation of where he's been gone the entire time and how his love for her, the true love for her, kept him alive all this time because a pirate was just like, okay, all right. Have a good day, Wesley. I'll most likely kill you in the morning.
I love that.
The Dread Pirate Roberts. No one would surrender to the Dread Pirate Wesley.
I think that's if I ever get to the point of being in a marriage, that's probably what I'll say at every night. I'll be like, "Good night, Wesley. I'll most likely kill you in the morning."
As you wish.
Yeah. See, that's the dream right there. Yeah, what do you guys think of the "as you wish"?
I was always confused how it went from as you wish to I love you, but like as I got older, I kind of understand it a little bit more.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, I get how it's kind of meant to mean that like the intentions of what necessarily you're saying aren't always what,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? But I was always confused when I was little. I was like, but he's just saying yeah. Like essentially he's just telling her, okay.
Yeah, when you get older, you see all of the eye.
There's a lot of
There's a lot of eye fucking in that scene.
Yeah.
yes. Especially when he like goes to take the lot down and he's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
"Do you know?" And she's like, "I didn't, but now I know."
Yeah.
Fuck. There's a lot that goes on in between that. Give me that fucking picture and as you wish.
I also like that it's been like they spent years together.
Mhm.
It's not that they don't actually know each other or anything.
Well, and she is of a different class than he is.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that she's supposed to be like a merchant's daughter or something like that.
She's she's the daughter of the person that owns the farm and the
Right,
farmland.
right,
So
right,
like,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
of that same
Mm-hmm.
caliber.
And he's just a servant. So there's
Yeah.
also that class discrepancy where like she's not supposed to fall in love with him.
And also maybe why he wouldn't be saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I fuck the shit out of you, but like we don't get to always act on things when we're of a different class. I hate that. That sounded gross and I hate him for it.
Well, that was the time period.
It's
Mhm.
true.
And that's why there's all of the tension with the eye fucking.
So much eye fucking. It's such good eye fucking too.
I really liked the as you wish thing. I think that there's something really sweet about the idea that you can have your own language with the person that
Yeah.
you care about.
Well, and it's hyper realistic that
Right.
as you know somebody for so long, you have little phrases and quirks and things that you say to each other or do to each other that mean something that from the outside, somebody would be like, what does that even mean? It's like,
Mhm.
well, I'd have to sit here for an hour and tell you the history over the last several years to tell
Right.
you what that
Yeah.
moment meant.
Because it did not start out romantic or it did not start out as this like big thing. It was literally us fucking around at first.
Well, and also the notion that you can have the full conversation with your eyes
Mhm.
because
Oh, yeah.
they do that a lot in this movie, like the
Mhm.
implied conversation with the eyes. And I don't know, men seem to have more, and this is a generalization and I am terribly sorry, but men seem to have more of an issue with that than women do as being able to do that. But like I can have a total conversation with either of the two of you without saying a goddamn word.
Mm-hmm.
I try to do that with Pappy and he doesn't get it.
It's
He
actually
doesn't.
really difficult for me to have chill in those moments. Like someone will be like giving me the like look,
The look.
and the whole story's coming out and I'm like, don't smile, don't smile, don't smile. But yeah.
Well, we did it when we were with a big group of our friends hanging out, and Wiggles and I were having an entire ass conversation about somebody that was annoying the absolute fuck out of us.
It's true.
I don't know why it seems to be more of a female thing.
I mean, without going on a history rant, I can say that I have a theory as to why that would be. If you think about it, women weren't really allowed into public spaces for a very long time.
Yeah.
And communication that they were allowed to have was very limited. So if I've got to communicate with you that something important is happening, then I need to be able to say it in as few words possible so that Joe Schmo, who's being a dick over there, doesn't overhear us.
So are you thinking that it's almost become like a hereditary or evolutionary thing?
I think so, probably.
I mean, that makes sense.
It makes total sense. The nonverbal communication has become stronger with us because we just notice things more.
Well,
out
and
of
think about it
necessity.
this way: like you pass that your great on to infinity. Grandmother passes that to her daughter, and so on, because it's learned behavior, but eventually it becomes such learned behavior that we combine it with the nuances of our time.
Yeah.
The argument could also be made, perhaps, that because women are on edge a lot more than men are, like we are essentially trained from birth to notice everything around ourselves.
For
And
safety.
so, for safety reasons. And so that might also be why we clue into the nonverbal communication more, simply because we're just more aware.
It also could be because as much as we are given flack for being chatty and talking too much and blah, 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 men talk 70% more than women do in most job situations, right?
Not just job situations. Most men I know are chatty bitches.
It's
Right.
true.
I don't know what the hell this whole like.
Well, and then men perceive when it's a 30-70 split, men perceive that as 50-50.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, bitch, where?
To be fair, this is not us bashing on men. It's just kind of a fact of reality in our lives.
Well, the thing is, it's not bashing on men, but it is bashing on the patriarchy, and that's not going to be easy for you to dismantle if you're a guy. So you're going to have to, like, hear some of these things in order to improve it. You can't just sit there and go, yeah, it sucks. You have to
Yep.
actually do something about it and work on self-improvement.
So we're on a very interesting track that I made a note of it and I wasn't going to bring it up, but we're here. So what did you guys think of the sexism in this movie?
I mean, well, it's pretty clear, right?
Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
are a grand total of 3 women in the entire movie. Am I
Yeah.
miscounting? Right? It's Humperdinck's mother, it's Buttercup, and it's Miracle Max's wife.
There's one, I mean, there's a couple extras.
Oh, and
there's,
the woman who boos
yes,
at her.
Yes.
the booing
Yes.
woman.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a product of its time. It is the 80s,
Yes.
but
I mean, this absolutely fails the Bechdel test.
yeah.
Yeah.
Not that the Bechdel test is necessarily an indication of whether or not a movie is sexist, because sometimes, anyway, I'm
Right.
not going to go into the details of that. But the point being, no, it does have some problematic things. But Buttercup is often very, very helpless.
Yeah.
The way that women in general are perceived in this, every single woman nags, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
So Humperdinck's mother gets after her husband for dawdling. The Buttercup obviously is naggy towards Wesley, and the woman who boos, like, that's her whole thing. That's
Yeah,
the
that's her
entire
character.
personality of that woman, and that she's ugly, right?
Yeah.
That she's the counterpoint to Buttercup's beauty.
Although, I do have to mention, though, her eyes are fucking gorgeous. I stare at her eyes every fucking time.
I'm
The
sure
booer?
that they picked her for that intensity that she could pull through the makeup.
Yeah, 'cause, I
Right.
mean, they're like crystal blue, and I stare at them every fucking time.
Sometimes I used to, like, I don't think this is true, but I used to wonder if it was just that actress, I can't think of her name all of a sudden, that it was just her in makeup.
I always wondered that, too, if it was Aaron Wright.
Yeah.
The gal who plays the booer,
Yeah.
Marjorie Mason is
Yeah,
her
I
name.
didn't think it actually was, because it doesn't sound like,
It
I
doesn't
don't think
sound
her
like
voice could do that.
Yeah.
But I did often wonder if that was the intention, at least, was that it was supposed to be this, like, projection of herself.
Yeah.
But then obviously you have Miracle Max's wife, who again nags.
Valerie, and that's one of my favorite actresses.
Yes.
Carol Kane is amazing.
She's amazing, and she does such an amazing job.
Yes. And then, of course, none of them are allowed to interact.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, no.
And they're all, unless they are required for the plot that is moving forward, they're all relegated to relatively background roles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even Buttercup, for the most part, isn't in.
She gets sidelined a lot.
Yeah, she's not in the movie a lot. I mean, where she is, she gets kidnapped, but she's still even a side character in the fact that she got kidnapped.
Well, and let's even talk about the fact that the entire plot revolves around passing this woman from hand to hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like it's definitely problematic in that way, for sure. I would love to be able to turn a blind eye to it, but I can't.
Well, and some of it's, I mean, not some of it's just overt. Obviously, Humperdinck is super sexist towards Buttercup, but he's a bad guy and he's supposed to be. He's supposed to have that Gaston vibe before Gaston existed as we know him today. But also Wesley, like, and I know he was trying to scare her when he was the Dread Pirate Roberts, but he said some shit that I'm like, bro, Wesley.
Well, and it's not Humperdinck who threatens to hit Buttercup.
No, it's not.
No,
it's
it is not.
him.
That's Wesley. So there's also that where it's like, doesn't like that. Didn't like that moment at all. I get that he is playing a part, and I don't think that he would have actually hit her.
Yeah, I don't for 1 minute think he would have ever actually struck her, because any time that he is not pretending to be the Dread Pirate, I mean, he is the Dread Pirate Roberts technically, but the rest of the time when he is actually just being Wesley, he worships the ground she walks on whenever he's near her.
Yeah, I
But-
just can't stand it when he says things like, where I come from, if women lie, you get hit or something. He says something, I don't know what the exact line is.
The next time my hand flies on its own, where I come from, there are penalties for women who lie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though, that and maybe allows me to give it more forgiveness than it necessarily deserves. But that whole scene was very much giving me Rochester Jane Eyre vibes when he like dresses up as the fortune teller.
Oh, yeah.
Like it felt very much like the whole thing was to like he needed to get the confession of love. Like, does she still love me? I'm gonna rescue her no matter what, but I need to hear that she loves me before I reveal who I am. Because if she doesn't, I'm gonna send her off to be saved and not be murdered, and I'm gonna leave.
Right.
That's how I've interpreted it. Maybe I'm being too generous.
And I also I always got the impression, because I understand he was playing a part, but at the same time, I think the anger behind it was real.
Oh, well, yeah, he thinks that she's betrayed him and left their love in the dust to go marry a prince.
Like, I think he didn't realize that she thought he was dead, but yeah, he was just pissed. And I can get being pissed, but you went at it a very theatrical way there, Wes.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, I also don't love that it happens twice, right? Like, we have the first one where, like, she's like, well, he's been dead for 5 years, so I can't really say no to this guy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, she chooses to go be with Humperdinck, who's a
Yeah.
tool, and it's obvious that he's a tool. In spite of the fact that she wants to be with Wesley to save him, and his interpretation of that is, you've betrayed me. And it's like,
She literally said in front of you, will you let him live if I go with you?
right. So I was
Like-
like, where's the confusion? And it's one of those things that happens in romance books, and not to go back to this horrible How to Marry a Millionaire Vampire book, but happens a lot in that book, where I'm like, literally, there's nothing confusing here. It's you are actively choosing to find the worst potential outcome of this.
Yeah.
And the worst potential intentions. It is really obvious what the other character is trying to do.
Yeah.
Like, pull your head out your ass.
It is a very common theme or trope in romance
I
books where
hate
one
it.
person tries to do does a sacrifice for the other, but it's seen by the other person as a betrayal.
Yes.
I love that at that moment, he's like, we know the secrets of the fire swamp. We could live there quite happily for some time. Come and join us if you dare. And I'm like, I would have gone in the fire swamp with Wesley. They
Yeah,
do
what
know how to they know how to survive in there now.
They were surrounding him, though. Like,
know.
Yeah.
Buttercup's choice becomes very obvious when you see, like, there's no chance that they can run back into the fire swamp faster than a horde of horses.
That's
Well,
true.
and there's all them crossbowmen.
Yeah.
They'd get shot.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And,
I
like,
probably would have stayed in the fire swamp for a couple of days, because like they knew how to survive it. They knew.
Well,
what
they
the
weren't going to
lightning
get
stand-
into the
That's what-
fire swamp.
that, yes.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have made it to the fire swamp.
No. I meant previously, like before they actually even left it. It's like, why didn't you just wait a couple of days in there? Like, if they tried to chase you in there, they were gonna fucking die.
I don't know that so one of the things about Wesley is he's like supposed to be smarter than Vincini, more
Yes.
cunning than Inigo, and have a greater strength, even if it isn't quite physical strength than Fezzik, right? But the thing is, he's not actually. He's a bit thick. He's a bit thick
Yeah.
in the head because, like, if you're so smart that you can do all these things, you'd think you'd have peripheral awareness to some extent. Like, if we're
He was
talking,
distracted by her beauty. No, I'm just kidding. I just felt like saying it.
like, if we're talking about this in D&D terms, his passive intelligence checks not great, not great.
He does have a bit of an ego,
Yes,
Yes.
and that kind of is his main fault.
yes, which is interesting because his whole thing before going to the Dread Pirate Roberts is that he's just like willing to get pushed around by Buttercup.
Yeah. Well,
So where does this ego come from?
it
Comes
sometimes
from being really rich.
well, but sometimes like the relationship you have with one person is entirely unique to that person.
Sure.
True.
So he can be egotistical any other way. And maybe more than likely he probably got that way becoming the Dread Pirate Roberts, because you go from a farmhand to becoming the Dread Pirate Roberts. You probably have a bit of an ego about you.
Well, and he's been in charge of rough and tumble men for 5 years now. Well, probably about 3.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Dread Pirate Roberts had to train him, and then they brought on a whole new crew with Roberts calling Wesley Roberts. And he's been retired for like 17 years and living like a king in Patagonia.
Sounds great to me.
Would you do it if somebody came up and said, "Hey, I'm going to make you the Dread Pirate Roberts"?
And then after 3 years, I can retire
Fuck
and do
yeah.
whatever the fuck I want.
Well, I don't know if it's
With my
3 years,
riches?
but sure.
Well, he's about to pass it to Inigo Montoya. That's implied.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I just assumed that he did that because Buttercup,
Mhm.
and regardless of how much actual money he has,
If I could retire and live like royalty,
and only have to do like
and
5 years of work or something.
1,000%.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
1,000%. I don't want to work now. I've always wondered, what's their fucking next step, right? Like, they get the horses at the end.
Yeah.
They ride off into the sunset. They have one of the top 5 kiss that blew the top 5 kisses in history out of the water.
Oh, it's so good. I love that kiss so much.
and then what? What is their plan? Do they go back to the ship and pirate around for a while? Do they like
Well, at the very least, if he is going to pass the title and the ship onto Inigo, he's got to train him.
right? So
And call
like,
him
are you taking
Roberts.
Buttercup
Yeah.
aboard?
He better. She ain't going to go back to the farm and just chill.
Right. Like, I'm just saying, there's some logistics that the happily ever after ending like really leaves out.
Dress her like a dude. There was a pirate queen that did that.
Yes.
it's true.
And
Bonnie.
And Bonnie. Yeah, there we go.
Mhm.
I was like, I
There
know
were
this
several
name.
actually.
There were, but actually there were 2 on the ship that Anne Bonny was on. But Anne didn't hide it through to the crew. She just usually hid it when they were like in battle. But the other woman lived like a man full time.
That seems like the perfect basis for a lovely sapphic romance.
There is implied that they were together, but then also when the ship was actually taken finally, and they were both in prison, it turned out that both of them were pregnant.
Oh,
Bitch, what y'all been getting up to?
look. Okay, what are you going to do at sea
I
for
don't know.
days or even weeks on end?
I
True.
I
Just-
couldn't do it. I could not. That would not be the life for me. The pirate's life is in fact not for me.
It's
if
a
for no other
stinky
reason,
life.
Yeah, exactly. The smell would kill me.
Yeah. Also, Anne Bonny, so she was due to be hanged, and then they basically were like, no, but her dad's rich. So she ended up moving to Georgia and having like 11 kids.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
There's something about historical romances or monster romances that are in like a medieval fantasy, whatever, high fantasy setting. Whenever it's always when there's like somebody's going down on somebody else, and my brain has to turn off the like, but it's stanky down there. Nobody washed. You were on a horse all day.
Dude, right?
true.
Like think about that stanky ass dick.
Nah, man.
And
No, I
coming
don't want to
at
think
ya.
about the stinky ass dick.
It would be disgusting. Like that's one of the things that I don't know if I appreciate or I hate. Like I flitter back and forth with the fucking Outlander series. They're not shy about how gross it is. And I'm like, you could be a little more. You could be a little more shy.
Yeah. Or like, I mean, Obviously, there's a lot of swampy down in the Dick and Balls region. But, like, the cooch also gets a little stanky if it's sweaty. And
Well, okay,
I'm like,
they
I
did
just
do-
wipe it out
They
real
did
quick.
do like hand bath, right? So
yeah, but
they
they
would-
don't always do it before the sexy times.
they would PTA it, you know, pits tits ass.
I get that. But at the end of the day, on the road, there's always somebody going down on somebody in these fucking books. And nobody says, just like, take a bath first. Like, I don't need the scene. I just need to know that you did it.
Dude, okay.
Okay.
No, yes. I'm conflicted. So I read this book.
no.
I won't tell you which one it is because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who might read it. But this gal gets married to this guy, and he only can ride so long after the wedding until they like have to set up camp.
Yeah.
They do not make it to a village, right? So they're just out in the fucking woods. All right. Okay. Does not clean up whatsoever. Been riding horse, like you say, hours, the whole day. Her ass is literally sore from riding all day, right? Yeah, riding all day.
I'll show you riding all day. No, just kidding. You.
And they fully go into the biz, and he goes straight down to Pound Town. And just like, Jesus Christ. It took me, like, I had to literally mentally detach. I had to be like, no, reality doesn't exist here. They are perfect and not stinky and not gross and not sweaty and not.
All I want is 2 sentences that just say, and we take a spare cloth in our water bottle and just do a little cleanup.
Our water bottle?
Or water skin.
Okay.
And do a little cleanup. And that's all I want. That's all I want. I don't need any more than that. I just need to know that you washed.
Well, you know what really grosses me out? Because, like, that's bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also, that was, like, I guess what you did. But, you know the show The Walking Dead?
Mm-hmm.
Bitches be showing up pregnant. And y'all look disgusting on a
Like,
daily.
I can understand the 2 stanky genitals going at each other. I can't understand when somebody's face, where your nose is and your mouth is, goes down on one of them stanky genitals.
Well, there's a part of me, and it's I have to shut it off when it comes time. But like, most of them are doing the shake. They're not cleaning up themselves after they leave the bathroom. They're doing the shake, and I'm like, you can't tell me you got all that pee off.
I think it should be completely acceptable before sexy times to say, like, hey, can you just give it a little, just
wash
go in the
down.
bathroom and just like
Clean it up.
wipe her off for me?
I mean, I guess the
Freshen up.
First step is we just got to get them to wash their hands.
That's the other thing when you think about, like,
yes!
putting hands up in the
Dirty ass-
vagina.
Dirty ass, like, they're always described as like grubby, thick fingers. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Don't
grubby
put that-
tells me that there's dirt caked in that shit.
Don't you put that next to me.
Don't you be coming in hot with those fucking split fingernails,
Ugh.
dirt caked underneath them. I will kill you. No, man,
Nay.
Pam. Anyway, so
There's no sex in this movie, so this
there's
is.
zero, so we had to find some way to get to it. Oh my god.
Oh Lord.
Should we talk about? It's gonna be a really big, weird deferral, but
I think we need that. We need to break the
yes,
cycle.
we need to.
okay. Big world weird deferral. So the torture
Yes.
that they do on Wesley, and they do on other people too, but Wesley is the main person you see. One, they have a secret grove where you have to hit a certain knot on a tree and it opens a door, which is clearly there. It's very 80s, but it cracks me up. And then he sucks a year of your life away.
That's what I call going to work.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Now remember, it's for posterity. How do you?
And then cries.
does that imply that magic exists in this?
I mean, it does though, because Mad Max is a wizard.
Yeah, he brings him back from the almost dead.
Yes.
But
I think this would fall under. I think this is science. It's fantasy science.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
science in their world, but I'm
Yeah.
sure there's some sort of life
Well, if you
Or
can be
magic involved.
mostly
but-
dead and
Yeah.
not full dead, right, then like already your life is different.
Yeah.
But I've never, ever, ever, ever in my life been done so fucking dirty than by BuzzFeed's which character are you in in The Princess Bride.
Oh no.
I am still angry about it to this day. So I'm taking this thinking like the worst I could get is like Humperdinck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. No,
Oh, no. Did
they
you
hit me
get
with
Count Rogan?
you're the albino, and then like described me to a T. Like it was, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something like you avoid the sun at all costs. You like to work in peace and quiet, and honestly, you're a little bit weird. And I was like, how dare you? I was like, this can't be real life. And no, everybody else was getting totally normal answers, and I got the fucking albino.
Okay, I love that albino though. I
Yeah.
love
He
that
was
he's
funny.
like the pit of
The bit of despair.
Don't even think about trying to get out of here, and you're like, oh, what just happened?
Yeah. Gotta
My-
love that comedy.
My sister and I love to like give each other the head shake he does, where he like gets rid of his chins and is like, whoa. We'll do that to each other all the time. We'll be like, no.
Also, when they find him outside, and he's like, Fezzik, jog his memory, and he like and you can tell he did it so lightly. He just like kind of just set his fist on top of the albino, and he's just done. He's out. He's dead.
Didn't mean to jog his memory so hard.
I also love that he's just called the albino.
Yeah.
Well, why bother coming up with a name? You know, seems unnecessary.
Oh my god. So that kind of brings me to something that kind of loops back around to the romance aspect of it, is when Wesley's killed, Humperdinck comes down and he says to him, you two truly love each other. You might have had a chance at happiness. No one couple in a century could say that, right?
Yeah.
So I believe that no one will feel this pain so dearly as you, or something like that.
No one else in a century will feel as horrible as you, something
yeah,
like
something
that.
like that. Yeah,
Will suffer as much as you have.
that's it. Yes, and like this movie and the book does the same thing. Does a really big effort to be like, no, they're different. They have true love, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have something special that none of the rest of y'all commoners can have, right? And on one hand, it's like, okay, so your idea is to say that their love is like the purest of love.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you're literally telling other people like, but it's not for you. You can't have this.
It's definitely setting up the idea that nobody else gets love.
Yes. And it's like, so at one hand, it's like aspirational towards love, but at the same time saying like love is dead, love isn't real.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? What?
I
Oh
also
my
kind of
God.
like how cynical most of the characters in this movie are
Mhm.
towards true love, which honestly is very realistic in life too, because
Mhm.
a lot of people are really cynical about what true love really is and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Myself. But I just kind of like that in this fantasy setting. Everyone's a little cynical about it. Max's wife is like, no, it's true love. He said true love, but Max is kind of trying to be like, to play, which means to bluff. And it's like, no, that's not what he said. Liar! Get back, witch. I'm not a witch, I'm your wife, but after what you just said, I don't want to even be that anymore. And it's just, it seems like everybody in the movie
You never had
is cynical towards true love. Like,
Yes.
everybody's just like, oh yeah, that's real. They kind of do the condescending thing of, oh, that's sweet.
That's for children and
Yeah.
fairy tales.
Right.
Which I honestly feel like was probably a very medieval
Sure.
way of thinking about love too, because a lot of marriages were arranged and
Mhm.
all of that. So I can see where people would in
Mhm.
that time period be very cynical about what true love is. I mean, people are even to this day, but they're less than they are in this movie.
Mhm.
I don't feel like most people in the world are like, true love doesn't exist.
Depends how you define true love.
I feel like
Well,
it
and
has
that's
to work
the
that's
question.
the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, what makes love have a step up? This is now the true love, right? I don't know. Couldn't ask me. Never found it.
I guess is the closest here.
Yeah.
There's
to
Oh.
blame.
You know, not to like shit on anybody's parade, but I don't know. I don't think there really is anything as like true love, because
I
that
agree.
implies some sort of like almost fated mates type
Yeah.
Right.
situation. And you can definitely like fall in lust or romantic whatever feelings with somebody immediately, but love takes work
Absolutely.
and dedication and patience and a lot of butt grabs. The iconic fight between Wesley and Inigo Montoya starts with the most absurd thing in the world, which is them climbing that fucking rope.
The
The
cliffs of insanity.
Thank you. And first off, that rope is fucking huge.
It
Like,
was, but it looked
who's
tiny
trying
in,
to
in Andre the Giant's
grab
hands.
it. And also, I understand it's the 80s, but you don't climb a rope with only your upper body. It is a bad idea.
Well, apparently
Don't
he
do
can.
it.
He just swishes his legs back and forth as he climbs.
That is the thing that just like annoys the shit. Andre doesn't annoy me as much because it's Andre and he's carrying 3 people, but it also, I'm just like, your legs are also there to help you.
Apparently,
Use your legs.
maybe if you touch the cliff of insanity, it makes you insane.
You can do it on the rope, but you would have to know how to wrap the rope around and stuff.
And he goes so fast.
Ridiculous. Don't
It's
be
so
climbing
fast.
ropes without using your legs.
It also leads
Maybe he
to
was
some
using his
fantastic quotes again, because you have,
I do not suppose you could speed things up.
but even in the fight, you have, I am not left-handed. Also, that fight is, so this just like popped into my brain and I forgot about it. So during that fight, Manny Patinkin said that like they were having so much fun doing it that he almost didn't want them to get it right, because he knew that when they did, they wouldn't be able to do it ever again. And I was
He
like,
just wanted to do it over and over again.
yes.
Oh, that's
yes.
adorable.
Let's talk a little bit about the political intrigue that's happening in the background of this, like the justification for
Right.
I'm going to kill Buttercup. Humperdinck's plan makes no fucking sense.
It's true, because she's a commoner, essentially.
Right. So he's got to marry her in order for her to become a princess and for the people to love her. And he's like, you know, I if I kill her on my wedding night, they're going to be so angry.
Yeah, he's supposed to stage it so that it looks like an enemy kingdom sent people in to murder her.
Right.
But isn't he the one who hired Vicini?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So his original plan was to kill her on the day of their engagement.
That it's to show that they kidnapped her and then took her into their lands and killed her.
No, yeah, I get that.
He's trying to Franz Ferdinand that situation.
Right. Is it what's the neighboring country? Gal something or another?
So it's shit. Now I can't.
I
Now
can't
you have
remember
that
it.
in my head and I can't think of it. Gilda.
Gilda.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. he
Florin and
wants-
Gilda. Yeah. And so the whole time, I love when he's like hunting her down, he's like, this is obviously the work of the agents of Gilda.
Right.
And I love
Dispute
the-
anybody.
I love at the end when like they're closing in, but he's like, we've been doing this for so long. My God. He's like, if we do not find her alive, I'm going to be very put out. I'm just like, that is why I love Humperdinck, because he's just so ridiculous.
I love I love to watch you work, but I have my wedding to plan, my wife to murder, and Gilda to frame for it. I'm booked.
If you haven't got your health, you haven't had anything. Okay. So in my rewatch this week, I picked up on something. I'm like, am I just reading too many romance novels, or is this real? Are the Six-Fingered Man, because I can't think of what his name is,
Rugen?
Count
something?
Rugen
Yes.
Rugen.
and Humperdinck, is there sexual tension
There-
there? Or is it
there's
just me?
100%
Okay,
sexual
okay,
tension.
And I noticed that as a child, Wiggles.
Yeah. No, there's 100% sexual tension.
Okay, good. I'm glad it's not just me. I wasn't really paying attention to that before. I don't know why. Like, it wasn't like, I just suddenly was like, oh shit, hot damn. You doing some eye fucking over there.
They be eye fucking, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely a power dynamic that I think they would lean into in the sex.
Right.
Like, it's not one of those like, oh, but behind closed doors we're equals. It's like, no, but behind closed doors we are definitely the prince and the count.
Yeah.
There is the step that is there.
Well, and it kind of makes you wonder if like that's the reason for his motivation, is that he just wants to impress Count Rugen. He'd be like, I'll get you so many people to torture.
The one thing I never understood or I always found interesting is that fact that like Humperdinck is the one who is leading the rescue, and also the one that seems to be the best tracker.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes,
when-
he's a master hunter. He can track a falcon on a cloudy day.
It's true.
But how often is he tracking people? That's the question. Because he's talking about like, oh, there was a giant here and there was a scuffle and a fight and it went like this and this and this. And I'm like, how often are you hunting people?
Well, they need somebody to experiment on.
I suppose.
He's
Yeah.
really rich and kind of bored.
Well, and very clearly, nobody says no to Humperdinck.
Oh, very clearly.
Yeah.
Like, I love the bit with the guard where he's like, my wife has been threatened by agents of Gilda. Or evils of Gilda. I don't know, whatever. Been threatened by Gilda. So I need you to clear out the thieves' forest, which doesn't make sense.
No.
At
no
all.
sense.
At all. But and then the guard's like, oh, well, we've already doubled the guard. There will be resistance from the criminals. And he's like, then form a brute squad. And he's like, all right. I guess I'm gonna go clear out the thieves forest. This is gonna be a great time for me. Like, they just do whatever he says. So I'm sure like they probably had actual, in my mind, this is how this goes. Humperdinck is not the best hunter. And he just has servants who are doing a lot of the work for him. And then he acts it out. Thinking he's special. And they're like, so there's these tracks here, these are, he's like, I got it from here. So there was a great duel.
I love that there's an entire forest for the thieves and the criminals.
Yeah, just
Like-
for them.
We just left that aside for you guys to go in and
I also like that there is, again, not one single female person in that entire thieves forest.
Yeah.
right. The 80s.
You know, it's true. It's true. It's true.
I also love when Fezzik finds Indigo and he's nursing him back to health and telling him about the six-fingered men, like he looks so sweet nursing him back to health and then like shoving his head in the water and yanking him up and shoving his head in the water and yanking him up. Kills me every time.
Well, and that's a perfect example of where they use comedic irony over and over and over again in this movie. Because, like, the grandpa's reading the book and he's like, Fezzik took great care. How's we go from
Yes.
and it's like, splash, splash. He's like, enough!
I've got it.
Oh, their friendship is the best.
Mm.
Honestly.
It really is.
Honestly, that bromance might top the romance for me because I'm like, you bestie boys, you're so cute together.
I
That's
love
true.
that their way of like entertaining themselves on journeys is to come up with rhymes, and they don't
Yeah.
talk about the fact that they're going to start playing this game. They just look at each other and go,
One of my other favorite moments is when Inigo is chasing down the six-figured man and he's trying to get into the room and he's like, Fezzik, he's getting away. He just like keeps like
He's
running
like,
into the
"Fezzik,
door.
come into the door.
Yeah.
I need you, Fezzik, and he just like
Fezzik, please!
sticks Wesley on a
Yes.
statue.
Yeah.
Then he comes back and he's like, the fuck? You can't walk, my guy. Where'd you go? And I love that they give him no lines to react to that. It's just all just like body
Yes.
just going, this don't make sense.
Oh.
And then he just must obviously give up on giving a
Yes.
shit where Wesley is like, I'm gonna go find some horses.
I think if I remember right, that whole sequence in the book is also very convoluted where I'm like, how? No. Make it make sense because it doesn't right now.
No, it doesn't.
It's
No.
one of my favorite moves in the entire movie, and it's so silly and there's no meaning. Is after he's like subdued Humperdinck and everything, and he takes a step forward with the like point of his sword down in the floor,
Mhm.
and he just like falls and pulls himself back up, and it's so comically wonderful.
Well, Carrie, our actor, who is very handsome,
He's
even
Sure
to this
is.
day, is very
he's
handsome.
Oh, yeah.
pretty.
His physical comedy is chef's kiss. It is
Oh.
so good.
And it's always weird when you see him in a serious role because you're like, so are you gonna do something funny though?
Something
What are
weird.
you gonna do something funny?
But like Robin Hood Men in
Like-
Tights.
I don't know if
Ugh.
you've ever watched the movie Kiss the Girls and See Them Cry.
No.
It's in a series of like detective books,
Mm.
but that have been turned into movie because there's also one that's like anyway. Morgan Freeman is like the lead detective in all of these. That's the
Okay.
connecting factor, right? But this one has Ashley Judd and Carrie Ells in it, and like he's serious the entire movie, and I was like,
Like, it was uncomfortable. Him as he's very good as a villain too.
oh yes. See, I always forget that he is himself too when they put him in those villain roles, because they always kind of like do something different to his hair or something like that, and it's like you're like, that's not my guy.
It's like whenever I see video of Mark Hamill doing his Joker voice, and I'm just like, those things are supposed to live in separate parts of my brain.
No.
The only villain where I see him shining so much through is, of course, Twister, because he's also being funny as shit in that one.
Yeah.
I've never seen Twister. Well,
What?
no, I haven't. I remember being on at the babysitter when I was like, I don't know, some age
Which
in
means you've
grade
never
school.
played the Twister drinking game,
No.
which is every time Bill Paxton says, "Come on," you take a shot.
Let me guess, you get very intoxicated?
Yes.
Yep.
A lot.
I've never played the Twister drinking game, but I have seen Twister, and I will tell you that'll get you fucked.
Yeah. Come on. And also, okay, so that movie is surprisingly stacked with its cast too.
Yeah.
Like, it also has Philip Seymour Hoffman as Dusty, and it has Helen Hunt.
There's a
Mhm.
character in a movie about Twisters named Dusty.
Sure is.
Sure is.
Great.
Yeah.
Good times.
And he's the weirdest fucking guy.
You'd have to be.
Like, he has lines like, "She's inside the tunnel of suckage." And then he's like, also has lines that are like, "Food! Food!" So, yeah. I don't know. You got to watch it.
Sure, I'll add it to my never-ending list of things that
I'll
say
just
I'll
make you watch it
and
one
then-
night. Like, I won't even, like, give you a choice. I'll just come into your house and be like, "Scooch on over."
I mean, the door is pretty much always locked. So if you randomly show my house, I'll be like, mm-mm.
I'll find a way in. I don't think it'll be that hard.
Wiggle. I have.
Dun, dun, dun. Also, why are you revealing our secrets like that? This would have been so much easier if you
She's
didn't show
aware
our
I
hand.
have a key. I cat sit for them.
Yes, but she was forgotten about that until I showed up in her house.
Don't show up in my house. Back
just,
to this movie,
you
guys.
just turn on the lights and I'll be there and I'll be like, Twister time. Yeah, this movie.
I love the "for the pain" speech.
Yeah.
They're gonna to the death. No, for the pain.
I don't understand that scene because, like, Humperdinck is all like, yeah, fine, whatever. Cut off my ears, cut off my nose, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. And then as soon as Wesley stands up, he's like, oh no, I'm too scared now.
Well, it's because he thought Wesley was bluffing because he knew what he had done to him.
Mhm.
So he didn't actually think that he could possibly have any strength whatsoever to get up and do it.
Right, because if he did, he would have met him head on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that like swelling of music as he stands is as much for us as it is for Humperdinck.
It gets me every time.
because
No, like I get it. Like I get what they're trying to say. I don't know. I don't think it comes across very well. But
well, and so the reason I think it works on Humperdinck is because Wesley is just like on and on and on about what to the pain mean, right? And so rather than it being like this is just a duel and whoever comes out on top wins, right?
right.
He's just like laying it on thick of what he's actually going to do to him if he does in fact have the strength to do it.
He rolled an intimidation
Yeah,
check.
but Humperdinck never
you go.
looks scared. Like he's talking about it, and Humperdinck's just like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. Like throughout the whole explanation.
Until he says, right, and then my ears next, and he says, wrong! And then he goes into his whole thing about he's gonna leave like every babe that cries, every woman that walks by and says, "Dear God, what is that thing?" will remain in your perfect ears, right? Or something like that.
That's what the pain is. I leave you in anguish, wallowing freakish the rest of your existence.
Right.
Yeah. Like I said, I get what they're trying to do. I don't think it came across very well. But
Oh, I do. I think it comes a lot. Oh, I love it so much. It gives me the fuzzies and it makes me want to punch Humperdinck in the throat. And I also I don't know why it makes me giggle every time I think you're bluffing. He's like, it's possible, pig. I could be bluffing. I'm like,
Maybe also my problem with it is it's very anticlimactic. Like the ending is very like wow, and
Also-
we run away. Like the ending is very anticlimactic.
well, I mean, they realistically probably don't want to commit regicide.
Well, I think, you got to remember that this, as much as the 80s makes it not that geared towards children, it is actually geared towards children.
True.
This is supposed to be a children's story. So there's also got to be that factor of like, they don't actually want to see.
They don't want to hurt anyone. They
That-
just want.
They just
Death.
want to explain it in vivid detail.
I guess so. The 80s was weird.
The 80s
It's
was
true.
weird. Also, they don't want to explain it in vivid detail the murder of this dude. Although I do laugh when he's like, tie him up, do it as tightly as you want, and then all of a sudden you hear ow from Humperdinck. But yeah, I do like that they, I suppose it is technically a kids movie. I never really saw it as a kids
I
movie.
was saying it does
didn't
not
watch
come
it.
across
It is.
that way
It
at
for
all.
sure is targeted towards kids. And like, yes, they don't show us Humperdinck's death, but they definitely show Count Rugen's death.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I don't see how this is supposed to be
I
a kids
no,
movie.
no. Listen, the 80s were weird.
And
They also
Fatini.
gave us never-ending story.
Yeah.
The CDs I could see because all he does is just like croak and fall over.
Right.
Yeah.
But like Inigo is bleeding everywhere. Rugen is very clearly also bleeding everywhere.
I gotta say, like, my favorite thing about that fight is the way the slashes of the sword land with the music. The
Mhm.
da 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 da, and I'm like, this is so satisfying.
I also love that he gave him the slashes because those scars that Rugen gave him as a
Mhm.
child.
Right. Well, in the part where he says, offer me riches, anything you want and more. Offer me anything I could ask for, anything. I want my father back, you son of a bitch. Stab, stab, stab.
It's just a big swear for the 80s, son of a bitch.
It was
Wow.
a big swear for the 80s. I distinctly remember because like I said, I watched this as a kid. Like that wasn't like,
That's a big no-no.
and this was a movie that my friend's dad had us watch and he very much monitored what his kids watched and
Mhm.
everything. And the fact that they said son of a bitch in that movie and I walked into their house and he was like, all right, girls, we're watching this. And we're like, okay.
I know for a fact that it was targeted towards
Mhm.
obviously wouldn't have had that whole bit with Ben Savage getting not,
Right.
right
Fred.
Fred, whatever, they're the same person.
They are not.
Same.
One is The Wonder Years and one is Boy Meets World.
They literally are the same. Anyway, what do you think about it? It definitely has the charm and the innocence
Mhm.
in a lot of the parts of the movie, and then they have a whole torture sequence, right?
Yeah.
Although maybe that's why they choose to have the torture be taking years of your life as opposed to actually cutting somebody and whatnot.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also pretty comedic, the torture scene.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Poss-
yes. Whereas the duel at the end is dramatic.
It comes down to the violence that was enacted was either enacted by bad guys or was seen as justified.
Yes.
Mm.
There isn't a justifiable reason for Wesley to full out kill Humperdinck.
Well, and you could also make the argument as they just had this big dramatic execution fight with Indigo and Count Rugen. Why also have it with Humperdinck,
Right.
who doesn't, as we say, really doesn't pose that much of a threat to Wesley aside from the fact that he had Buttercup. If he can get Buttercup out of there.
Yeah, but he's just going to do it again. Humperdinck's just going to find some other bitch and do the same thing.
It's true.
That's true.
Like, this does not solve the problem.
No, not at all.
There's still going to be a war with Florin and Gilda, also makes me kind of like, Humperdinck, why didn't you just let this bitch go? Like, it
Yeah,
would
like, why
have
does it
saved you
gotta
so
be
much
her
time.
so much?
You lost your boyfriend in the process. Way to go.
Well, I think it's because, like you said, Humperdinck always gets what he wants. And so when there's this thing that he's set out, he's not going to let somebody just take it away. Do you think, here's the question that we ask about every 8th episode. Do you think that their true love stands the test of time?
I mean, according to the book, it does. According,
Yeah.
So like, and even according to the movie, if they are true love and they get to go right off into the sunset, it's assumed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're living in a very different world from ours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think the complications that our world has are going to be the case. Although I think if you were going to do a sequel to this book, it's it's Buttercup dragging their asses back and being like, we can't let these kingdoms go to war, my guy.
Either that or it's just them on the pirate ship.
Right.
Oh, I would read a book about them on the pirate ship.
But
all of them.
I
And
think
then
that
Buttercup gets captured again, just this time for a ransom. And it's like, oh no, we got to do it all over again. That's how sequels worked back then.
It is how
it's
sequels
true.
work.
Okay, so we've kind of hop, skip, and jumped our way around this movie. I think we can wrap it up and get into our ratings. I don't know how you're going to answer this one. What's your spice rating?
I mean,
There's some decent eye fucking, so I'll maybe give it a 1.
I was going to give it like a 0.5.
Yeah, I was going to do a 0.5.
Because they do kiss.
They do kiss.
And there's sexual tension in that kiss.
And there's sexual tension between the Count and Buttercup. Or not Buttercup. Humperdinck.
Yeah, they've been doing some weird shit down
They
there.
have been
for
doing
sure.
some shit down
For
there.
sure.
For sure. I'm glad it wasn't just me. I was feeling a little bit like, am I projecting? Have I read too much romance recently?
No, you're not.
What about your romance for the best kiss of all time?
Well, it's Wav.
Ooh,
Wav.
I give them like a solid 4. I like them as a couple.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's not really what the movie's about, but
No.
sure. I'll give it a 4.
I was closer to like a 3.
That's fair.
Fair enough.
Okay, so your overall.
I give it a 5. Like I said, it is one of my top 3 movies of all time.
And
And that might be fueled a lot by nostalgia, but I don't care.
Most people's top movies of all time, usually there's at least
Usually
one
are.
nostalgia pick.
Yeah. Most of mine are, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're not good. Just, nostalgia maybe blinds me to some heavy-handed shit. I love this movie. I really do. But I don't really know if the quality of the movie is so great or if I just have it fucking so well memorized that like it's just exciting when my favorite parts come on. So in trying to be fair to the movie and recognizing its sometimes glaring flaws,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to give it a 4.5.
I think I'm a 4. I like the movie. I like the movie plenty. It comes on a lot. It's a great movie to put on the background while you're like playing board games or doing other stuff. It's a great movie for that. So I think I'm a 4.
That's fair.
Perfect.
It's a great movie. It's a movie that would be improved by some more female influence for sure.
Yes.
Some more people of color for
For
sure.
sure.
Oh, fuck yeah.
But it's also one of those movies that for sure is the influence for why I am the way I am. Like, my sense
Same.
of humor is on display in this fucking movie. Like,
Yeah.
one of my favorite parts that we didn't really talk about is when they're on the boat and she jumps out to try and escape and he's like, "Do you hear that, princess? It's the shrieking eels." And then he stops the book and he's like, "She does not get eaten by the eels at this time." I'm telling you because you seem very upset. That shit is like, that's me right to a T.
Oh, God.
And
then
then when
they
it comes back and it's the narrator's voice, not the
Yes.
character's voice. Do you hear that, dream princess? Those are the shrieking eels.
Yes.
It kills me every time.
Oh my god, it's shit like that freaking kills me. Maybe he's just out for a lovely night swim in eel-infested waters. It's like, that's me right there. So
Okay.
yeah, this movie.
What do you think your recommendations would be then?
So I have 2, and they are probably admittedly mostly based in nostalgia for me because they give me kind of the same warm fuzzies.
Sure.
One is The Neverending Story.
I also have not seen The Neverending Story.
Oh, that is a travesty right there. And then the other one is The Labyrinth.
Yep. Yes. Same vibes.
Yes.
Same vibes for sure.
It's not so much a story thing or a romance thing. It is very much a feeling.
Yeah.
What you got, Wiggs?
So I also have 2 recommendations.
Ooh.
One is to genuinely go read the book The Princess Bride.
And that makes sense.
It's obvious, but like also it kind of needs to be said. Like I think a lot of people don't realize that it's based on a movie or it's based on a book, and the book is really funny.
It really is.
It's genuinely funny. It has a lot of the same problems that the movie has,
Sure.
so like go into it with open eyes on that one. But it's very meta, very like am I like, what am I reading? Am I reading the story or am I reading like this quasi story? It's anyway. My second recommendation is mostly for the humor. Is Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Oh, hells yeah.
Oh, sure.
Very similar vibes in my opinion.
I'm honestly surprised neither of you said Robin Hood Men in Tights, purely for the humor.
You know, I can't name all of the things that are good. You got to do some work yourself.
Yeah, I have a list.
No, I meant like the viewer or listener.
Okay. Thought you meant me. My recommendations would be Ever After.
Sure.
Oh, yes.
And then Ella Enchanted, if you wanted a slightly more modern spin on it.
Also, isn't our hero the villain in that one? Is he not?
Not that I remember.
No.
Am I totally?
What movie are you thinking? Are you thinking the
Oh.
Anne Hathaway movie?
Yeah, no, he
Yes.
is. Yes.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yes. He's
Carrie Ewells is
the bad guy. In
Holy shit,
Enchanted,
he
is he not?
is.
Yes,
no,
he
he
is.
is.
Okay.
I wasn't thinking like when you said our hero is the bad guy, I was thinking like the hero of Ella Enchanted. I was like, the hero of Ella Enchanted is Ella.
Sorry. Hero of this movie
Yeah.
Is the villain.
is the
Yes.
villain in that movie.
He is indeed, yes.
Yeah. So there you go. That's
so
what
if
I
you
got
want to see
for
him
you.
as a villain, that's the way to go. Okay.
Okay. Well, that's what we got for you, folks. So if you liked this episode, you could find us out on the socials at Wrong Dust Jackets, primarily on TikTok and Instagram, or you can find us out on our website at wrongdustjackets.com. We really would love to hear from you. So please give us a like, a review, a rating. Let us know your thoughts or what you would like us to read or watch next. That's what I got. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.